Alright people, another Mango here. Just gonna do a vlog on something to do with my height basically. Now, I get asked on a regular basis that just being 5'2" have a problem with riding a bike. Now, I'm only gonna stick to my life and the bike. Not to my life and just the bike, you know what I mean? There's no point saying, oh yeah, being 5'2" affects my whole life. There's no point going into that. That's irrelevant. But you know, yeah, it is difficult. It does cause me issues on the riding side of things, and for several reasons, not just the bike, but simple things just as like, you know, helmets and riding gear and all that kind of stuff. Now, obviously some people say, well, it shouldn't really matter because at the end of the day, you just lower your bike. Now, when I got this bike, I lowered it, and it was one of the worst things I ever did, okay? Lowering a bike, a sports bike, is just not worth it, alright? So, I lowered it, and then my side-to-side action, left and right, was just difficult, okay? I was struggling to get around corners like I once did. Because obviously when I first got this bike, for a while I had to ride it at the standard height it was at, because obviously I had to wait for the parts to come. So I rode it round for a bit, and you know, my left and right was absolutely precise. So, but I didn't know that until after the modification, okay? So obviously I lowered the bike, and then I found that every time I went around a corner, it was harder. It was hard to get it from left to right. It just took more effort. So I took a visit down to a local garage. Well, it was Kawasaki, and they have their own race team. The guy that is the manager of the shop or owns it or whatever, he also is a rider for BSB. Now, obviously, I spoke to his people, and they said that obviously, you know, if you lower a bike, you start to affect its handling. So they said, we advise that you put the bike back up to its original height, get the seat lowered, you know, trimmed, or just learn to get on with it, you know, learn to tippy toe everywhere and stuff like that, because it will be a lot better. So I've done that, okay? So, you know, it's not as easy as just lowering bikes and getting on with it, because it has an effect. Now, like I say, my height affects me in so many different ways when it comes to riding. One, the ability of a bike, yeah? I mean, it takes a person, you know, a certain weight of a person to get it from left to right. You know, the smaller you are, the more weight you've got to move in respect, you know. Unlike some of my friends, they're, you know, they're normal sized blokes. These bikes are little Tonka toys between them. To me, it's a lot of bike. So for them, it's just whipping it around like it's nobody's business. Stopping can be an issue. Mainly when pushing a bike back, I have to get off and do it. That is an issue, I can't do that. Turning in tight streets, you know, stuff like that can be a difficulty again. You know, just, yeah, stuff at low speeds. Because obviously where it requires me to be really foot to the floor kind of thing. Everything else, like riding along in general, is fine. Everything else is good. Now, my biggest problem I get through my whole height is gear. Now, you know, when I first passed, people used to give me dirty looks because I'd be riding around in jeans and just basic clothes and helmets that were too big for me. And people would stare at me like, oh bloody hell, and you could read what they were saying, you know, like bikers and stuff, and I understood and everything. I understood, like, you know, it wasn't the best thing, but it wasn't a choice for me. It wasn't like I had the opportunity to go out there and put gear on my back, you know. So I did get dirty looks, and after a while, obviously, I did for a while, obviously, keep looking and looking and looking. From the minute I passed, obviously, even before I passed, I was trying to buy gear, and when every time I went somewhere, they didn't have anything. Now, these are the things I usually heard. It was rather, right, we can get stuff in, but it'll have to be on a special order, and you will have to pay a charge. You will have to pay for the gear to come in. Now, I think most of it was money back, you know. You just pay for some of it, you put a deposit down. If you don't want it, you get it back. Now, you know, some of these places weren't exactly close. So I'd have to order it in, go all the way back out to this place just to try it on. If it was no good, it's a journey all the way back again. So that was one of the issues I had. Another issue was they just didn't stock it. They would say, as a business, we just don't sell enough to even attempt to want to bother with that sizing. Yeah? And then the other one would be, we can get your stuff, but it'll have to be custom made. Now, the thing that's always got me on the gear that I wear is that it costs more than it would for a normal person. There's less materials involved, but I have to seem to pay more, which really pisses me off, because at the end of the day, I have to pay more for safety than somebody else. Okay, that's not fair. So, when it does come to actually finding something like my helmet, they are extra smalls, and they are decent enough to use. They're not great, like, they could be a little bit tighter, but I have a small shaped head and a very thin jawline. Okay, so I do struggle. I have found a helmet, and I'm currently waiting to get it. That is small and should hopefully fit me a lot better. But that's the thing as well, like I say, when I do find something, it usually is basic, like black, white, or the leathers are just like nothing, you know what I mean, like literally just, there's no how do you say it, creativity, I don't bloody know, creativity, I can't even say it, I can't want to say it now, creativity, I don't know, they're just boring leathers, boring helmet, it's all boring, you know, and it's just like, for God's sake, you know, I walk into shops and think, wow, look at all those helmets, they're amazing, they look the absolute bizzle, yeah, and all my hates can go up and go, yeah, I'll have one of them, in the basic model, basic shape, you know, extra small, medium, large, whatever. Me, I look at all of them and go, not even a chance, I've tried my hardest, not a Nelly, you know what I mean, I'm not going to be able to do it. And it just gets to the point where I think, for God's sake, it's not fair. So, yeah, I mean, being small in a motorbike community is hard. You know, it is hard to ride a bike. It is hard to put gear on your back. You know, but there are advantages. You know, when riding a bike, I can get a very good performance out of a bike because I am light. My 0 to 60 is good. On most things I've ever ridden, like even go-karts and quads, my weight is so light that it doesn't even know I'm there. It's like, oh, let's go. There's just an instant takeoff, you know what I mean? So that is an advantage. Performance side of it is brilliant because I have that ability to make things go quick. Let's get by. But yeah, like I say, it's got its pros and cons. There are more cons in respect, like, of the actual side of it, or like I say, gear that is important to wear, and you know, being able to do certain things. But my height doesn't stop me. Yes, it makes it difficult, but it doesn't stop me. I can ride motorbikes. I can't ride massive motorbikes like the Aprilia, RSVs and the RSs and stuff like that, you know, like the 1000 and stuff like that. Pretty much can't ride them, but they're not really a bike that I like. I like the new RSV, don't get me wrong. RSV4, I absolutely think is amazing. I have sat on one, and it does, yeah, I have to stretch. If I was to buy one, I'd possibly, you know, I could get away with it, but it would literally be tippy toes. So, you know, the bikes I'm not interested in are big. The big ones I'm not interested in anyway. They're not up my street. I like small sports bikes. I like small naked bikes. You know, crossers. That's the only thing I do enjoy riding crossers. Now, I did ride 80s and 85 stuff like as I was growing up. And unfortunately, I have got to a point where that's all I can get on. 125s and 250s and 4-strokes are pretty much out of my range. Now, I have sat on some. It would take a lot of like adjustments, cutting seats out for me to do it, and it's just a bit like, ugh, you know. So having that would mean taking the bike and losing some of its ability, and that kind of throws me away from motocross at the moment. But I hope that answers it. You know, does being 5'2" affect me as a rider? Yes, and these are the reasons why. I know a bit of a long story, but that is the story. But anyway, I'm out of here, people. Got some things to do. Bye-bye.